If you've ever been unwanted in your own home, this one's going to hurt. I turned 18 at 6:12 p.m. By 6:15, I was homeless. There wasn't screaming. There wasn't a dramatic fight. That's what makes it worse. My father reached into his wallet, pulled out a $50 bill, threw it at my face, and said, "I'm done paying for another man's mistake. Get out." Not quietly. Not privately. In front of my grandmother. In front of my brother. In front of 6 relatives sitting at the kitchen table. The bill hit my cheek first. Then it slid down the counter. And nobody moved. Not one person said, "Gary, that's enough." Not one person said, "She just turned 18. Just silence. You know what silence like that feels like? It feels like confirmation. My name is Dakota Ashford. I'm 29 years old. And for 11 years, I carried a sealed envelope. Through nursing school. Through 12-hour shifts in pediatrics. Through holidays alone. Inside that envelope was one piece of paper that could have ended everything. I didn't open it in front of him. Not because I was scared. Because I was patient. And if you stay with me, I promise you, the moment he finally saw what was inside it, was worth the wait. But first, you need to understand how we got there. Because men like my father don't wake up one morning and decide to throw their daughter away. They build up to it. Slowly. Quietly. And sometimes, they start the day your mother dies. My mother's name was Marlene. She was the only reason our house ever felt warm. You know how some people don't look strong, but they hold everything together? That was her. When my father's voice sharpened, her hand would gently land on my shoulder. When his eyes went cold, she would change the subject. She never challenged him directly. She redirected him. Soft. Calm. Strategic. She was the buffer. And when she died of ovarian cancer, the buffer disappeared. The doctors gave her 6 months. She lasted 14. 14 extra Tuesdays. 14 extra mornings braiding my hair. 14 extra chances to tell me, "You're stronger than you think, Dakota." I didn't know then that she was preparing me. After the funeral, everything changed. If you've ever seen someone drop the mask after a death in the family, you know what I mean. The kindness fades first. Then the patience. Then the pretending. I was 10 years old when I heard it. I was sitting halfway down the staircase. He didn't know I was there. He was on the phone in the kitchen. "She doesn't look like anyone in this family." A pause. "Frankly, I don't think she's mine." I didn't fully understand what that meant. But I understood the tone. It wasn't confusion. It was dismissal. And from that day forward, the difference between my brother and me stopped being subtle. Tyler got new school clothes every August. I wore whatever came from the church donation bin. Tyler got the bigger bedroom. I got moved above the garage. The heating vent didn't work properly. Winters felt like sleeping inside a freezer. Tyler got birthday parties. I got reminders. Be grateful you have a roof. You start learning something early when you're the invisible child. You learn that love isn't evenly distributed. You learn to shrink. You learn not to ask twice. But here's the thing about being unwanted. It does one of two things. It breaks you. Or it builds you in secret. And I started building in secret. At 15, I got a job washing dishes at Rosario's. 3 blocks from our house. Mrs. Duca paid me $7 an hour under the table. After closing, she'd slide leftover pasta into a container. "That's for you, sweetheart." That was dinner most nights. While I worked double shifts. Tyler went to soccer camp. $400. New cleats from Dick's Sporting Goods. My father drove him there himself. You know what I asked for that same summer? $40. For a used biology textbook. He didn't even look up from the television. Ask your real father. That sentence changes a kid. Even Tyler looked uncomfortable. He was 12. And even he knew that wasn't normal. But he didn't say anything. Tyler's survival strategy was silence. Mine became independence. By 17, I was paying for my own school supplies. My own shampoo. My own bus pass. And here's where I need you to pay attention. Because this part matters later. My grandmother, Nana, came every Sunday. Every single Sunday. She'd hug Tyler first. Then me. But when she hugged me, she held on longer. Sometimes she'd slip a $20 bill into my jacket pocket. Sometimes she'd cup my face and whisper, "You're a good girl, Dakota. Don't you ever forget that." She said it like she was apologizing. I didn't understand why. Not yet. Now let's go back to my 18th birthday. Because that's the day the illusion ended. I baked my own cake. Funfetti. From a box. I bought it with tip money. I iced it myself after my shift. One candle. That's all I wanted. To blow out one candle in my own house before I wasn't allowed to anymore. My father walked in. Work boots. Saw dust on his jacket. He saw the cake. He saw the candle. He saw me standing there alone. He didn't ask who it was for. He didn't say happy birthday. He pulled out his wallet. $50. Threw it at me. I'm done paying for another man's mistake. Get out. The room went still. Nana shifted on the couch. Tyler gripped the staircase railing. Nobody intervened. That's what hurt the most. Not the money. Not even the words. The witnesses. The fact that everyone watched. And accepted it. I picked up the 50. Folded it. Blew out the candle. And called Uncle Ray. He showed up in 40 minutes. Blue Ford pickup. Engine idling. I walked out with one garbage bag of clothes. I didn't look back. But on that porch, I made a promise. One day, he would understand what he threw away. And it would be too late to get it back. Uncle Ray lived above his auto repair shop. 2 bedrooms. Water stains on the ceiling. Kitchen barely big enough to turn around in. He cleared out a storage closet for me. Put in a twin mattress. Desk lamp. Folded quilt. "You're home now," he said. That's it. No interrogation. No lecture. Just presence. Ray had served 8 years in the army. 2 tours overseas. Came back quieter than he left. Opened his shop with his separation pay. Worked 6 days a week. Lived alone. He never asked what happened. He didn't need to. He just showed up. And sometimes, showing up is louder than defending. But here's where the story shifts. Because leaving my father's house didn't end the damage. It just moved it. Within weeks, calls stopped being returned. Aunt Patty, silence. Cousin Marcus, voicemail. Birthday card to Nana, no response. It was Ray who finally told me. Your father's been making calls. My stomach dropped. What kind of calls? He's telling people your mother confessed on her deathbed. Said you weren't his. That's when I felt it. Not sadness. Not anger. Disorientation. Because my mother would never. She fought 14 months for us. You think she'd spend her last breath confessing something like that? No. But here's the cruel part. Dead people can't defend themselves. And the first person to tell the story usually wins. Gary was loud. Gary was present. Gary told the story first. And I stayed quiet. If I stayed silent, I wouldn't just lose him. I'd lose my mother's reputation. Her memory. Her integrity. That's when revenge stopped being about me. And became about her. 3 years passed. I was 21. Halfway through nursing school. Phone buzzed. Unknown number. Dakota? It's Diane. Diane Mercer. Your mom's best friend. I remembered red hair. Wine glasses on the porch. Laughter drifting into the yard. I heard what your father's been saying. My grip tightened. It's not true, I said. I know it's not. I was there every day in that hospital. Your mother never said that. Relief. Then she said something that shifted the ground under my feet. Your mother didn't have a secret, Dakota. But your father does. Silence. When your mom was pregnant with you, she suspected Gary was seeing someone. My heart started pounding. She never had proof. But she told me he came home smelling like perfume she didn't own. Pause. If you want the truth, science doesn't lie. DNA. And if you're still with me right now, you already know what that means. But I didn't act immediately. I waited. Because I needed to know why I was doing it. Was I trying to win him back? No. That door was closed. I was protecting my mother's name. That was my line. And I held it. The opportunity came on Thanksgiving. I was 22. Tyler called me for the first time in 4 years. Dad's going to the game at noon. Just come by. 30 minutes. Same cracked sidewalk. Same dented mailbox. Same house that no longer felt like mine. We sat at the kitchen table. Instant coffee. Awkward small talk. Then the front door opened. Gary walked in. Looked at me like I was dirt on his floor. What are you doing here? Tyler invited me. Tyler doesn't make decisions in my house. Tyler stood. Dad, it's Thanksgiving. She's not family. Period. That sentence didn't crush me anymore. It clarified me. On my way out, I picked up his coffee mug. Still warm. Still damp at the rim. Slipped it into my coat pocket. Walked out. Tyler followed me to the truck. I'm sorry. I believed him. But belief and action are different things. 4 weeks later, the lab results arrived. Plain white envelope. No drama. No music. Just paper. I sat at Ray's kitchen table. Opened it. And when I read the numbers, my hand started shaking. Because the truth was finally in black ink. And it wasn't what my father had built his entire lie around. But here's the part one didn't expect. The truth didn't feel like victory. It felt like grief. And that's where we're stopping for today. Because what those results said didn't just expose him. They exposed something much bigger. And in the next session, you'll see why I didn't run to confront him. I waited. For the perfect moment. And that moment would come 11 years later. At his 60th birthday. In front of 80 people. With a microphone. And a door that would open at exactly the right time. If you think this is intense now, we're just getting started. If you're still here, good. Because this is where most people expect the explosion. The confrontation. The screaming. The dramatic showdown. That's not what happened. And that's why it worked. The envelope was thin. White. Ordinary. Return address printed in small black ink from the lab. No emotion. No opinion. Just data. I sat at Ray's kitchen table at 6:12 a.m. before my shift. Outside, a garbage truck groaned down Kellner Road. Inside, the coffee pot clicked off. My hands were steady when I opened it. They didn't start shaking until I read the numbers. Probability of paternity, 99.998%. Gary Ashford is the biological father of Dakota Ashford. I stared at it. Read it again. Then again. I'd expected that result. Diane's words. My mother's character. The math of it. I knew. But knowing something in your gut and seeing it printed in black ink are two different experiences. One is instinct. The other is proof. And proof changes posture. I didn't cry right away. I just sat there. Because for 22 years, I had been treated like an outsider. A debt. A reminder of betrayal. A mistake. And every single cruelty had been built on a lie. Not my lie. His. When I finally did cry, it wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was quiet. The kind of cry that comes when something unfair is confirmed. Not surprising. Just confirmed. Ray came upstairs at 6:45. He saw my face. Saw the paper on the table. Didn't ask. He picked it up. Read it. Set it down. Pulled out a chair. I know, he said. You knew? Your mom told me once. She never stepped outside that marriage. Not once. I believed her then. I believe her now. There was no celebration. No victory. Just clarity. And clarity is heavier than anger. Because anger can move. Clarity sits. Now here's where most people would have driven straight to their father's house. Thrown the paper in his face. Demanded an apology. Demanded something. I didn't. Because I finally understood something about Gary. He didn't need truth. He needed control. And if I showed up emotional, he would twist it. He would deny it. He would say the test was fake. Or manipulated. Or that I tampered with the sample. Men like him don't surrender easily. They rewrite. So I didn't show up. I mailed it. I put the results in a fresh envelope. Wrote his name on the front in blue ink. Sealed it. Dropped it in the mailbox the next morning. No note. No threat. Just evidence. 2 weeks later. It came back. Stamped in red. Returned to sender. Unopened. That's when something inside me shifted permanently. He didn't even want the truth. Because if he opened it, he'd have to face himself. So I put the returned envelope in my nightstand drawer. And I stopped chasing him. That was the day I stopped needing his recognition. And that's dangerous. Because when someone realizes they don't need you anymore, your power over them disappears. I graduated nursing school that May. Second in my class. Ray sat in the front row wearing a collared shirt I'd never seen before. He clapped like I'd just won the Super Bowl. Nobody else from my family came. Not Gary. Not Tyler. Not Nana. Nobody. And here's something I want you to think about. When you succeed without someone who tried to diminish you, it changes the narrative. Quiet success is louder than screaming. I got hired at St. Francis Community Hospital in the pediatric ward. 12-hour shifts. Rotating nights. Exhaustion that lives in your bones. But I loved it. I held newborns whose parents were too scared to touch them. I changed dressings on kids who didn't cry anymore because they'd learned crying didn't fix pain. I understood those kids. I knew what it meant to stop expecting comfort. And something strange started happening. The more useful I became, the less angry I felt. Not softer. Just steadier. By 26, I'd saved enough for a down payment on a one-bedroom apartment on Lehnan Street. Popcorn ceilings. Radiator that clanked at midnight. But the lease had one name on it. Mine. And if you've ever signed your name on something after being told you didn't belong anywhere, you know what that feels like. Ownership isn't about property. It's about identity. Meanwhile, Gary stayed Gary. Tyler got married at 25. I wasn't invited. I found out through Facebook. White tent. Rented tux. Bride smiling. Gary behind them with his arm around Tyler's shoulder, grinning like a man with no unfinished business. No empty chair for me. No mention. I scrolled past it. Closed the app. Went to work. Because that's the thing about building your own life. You stop waiting for invitations. But cracks were forming. And cracks matter. A few cousins started reaching out quietly. Hey, have you been? I saw you're a nurse now. I heard you're doing really well. You know what that meant? Gary's story was losing strength. Because success is inconvenient to a lie. It's hard to paint someone as illegitimate when they're thriving without you. And then? Nana died. 82. Congestive heart failure. She went in her sleep. Peacefully. Which was the gentlest ending anyone in that family ever got. I didn't go to the funeral. Gary made it clear through Tyler that my presence would cause a scene. I didn't argue. I sat in my apartment that night and looked at an old photo of Nana holding me as a baby. She was smiling. But her eyes always looked like they were carrying something heavy. 3 weeks later, I got a call from a lawyer's office downtown. There's an envelope for you. From your grandmother. Not money. Not property. An envelope. Sealed. Handwritten. To be delivered after her passing. I drove there on my lunch break. Mrs. Pratt, gray hair, sharp glasses, handed it to me across a polished desk. Your grandmother arranged this 8 months ago, she said. She was very specific. The envelope was thick. The handwriting on the front trembled. But it was clear. For Dakota only. I didn't open it in the office. I waited. Sat in my car in the parking garage. Engine off. Silence. And opened it there. 3 pages. Blue ink. Spiral notebook paper. She started with an apology. That's when my chest tightened. She said she'd known the truth for almost 30 years. She caught Gary with a woman named Karen. In the back seat of his truck. Behind the VFW hall. 6 months before I was born. My mother was 7 months pregnant. Gary begged Nana to stay quiet. And she did. Because he was her son. And she was afraid of losing him. So she chose silence. And spent the rest of her life carrying what that cost. I read that line 3 times. She chose silence. That sentence felt familiar. Because silence had shaped my entire childhood. The second page listed dates. Details. The VFW hall on Route 9. A Tuesday night in October. Karen worked at the county clerk's office. That's how Gary met her. Nana described the perfume she smelled on his jacket. Vanilla. Floral. Cheap. Not my mother's. And then the third page. The part that broke something open inside me. Dakota, you were always my granddaughter. You were always Gary's child. Your mother never betrayed anyone. Your father did. And I helped him hide it by staying silent. I am sorry. You deserve the truth. Signed. Dated. Notarized. Official. Witnessed by Mrs. Pratt. I sat there in that parking garage for a long time. Because suddenly, the lie had shape. It had names. Locations. Proof layered on top of proof. Gary didn't accuse my mother because he suspected her. He accused her because he needed to deflect himself. Projection. Classic. If he made her the villain, he stayed clean. And everyone believed him. Because no one questioned loud men who sound certain. That was the moment revenge stopped being emotional. And became strategic. But here's what you need to understand. I didn't want to destroy him. I wanted him to see. Truly see. And men like Gary only see when the room is watching. That's when I heard about his 60th birthday party. Catered. 80 guests. Microphone. Speech planned. He was going to talk about legacy. About family. About loyalty. I could feel it. 6 months before that party. I put the DNA results and Nana's letter into a new envelope. Sealed it. And this time, I didn't mail it. I kept it. And I waited. Because timing is everything. Before I tell you what happened at that party, I need you to understand something. Revenge isn't loud when it's done right. It's quiet. Patient. Controlled. The night I finished reading Nana's letter in that parking garage, I didn't feel rage. I felt alignment. For the first time in my life, every missing piece clicked into place. The coldness. The favoritism. The whispers. The ask your real father. It was never about doubt. It was deflection. Gary accused my mother because he needed to bury his own betrayal. And Nana chose her son over the truth. And then spent 30 years watching me pay for that decision. That's why she squeezed my hand too tight. That's why she whispered apologies disguised as compliments. That's why her eyes always looked heavy. She knew. And she let it continue. Now here's the psychological shift. Pay attention to this part. When someone wrongs you for years, you fantasize about confrontation. You imagine speeches. You imagine them breaking down. You imagine apologies. But once I had proof, I didn't want an apology anymore. I wanted exposure. There's a difference. An apology repairs. Exposure reveals. And revealing a man like Gary in front of his chosen audience? That's permanent. I called Diane that night. She wrote me a letter, I said. A pause. She told you about Karen. You knew Nana knew? Your mother suspected. She thought Nana had seen something. But she never had proof. She carried that alone. Alone. That word stayed with me. My mother died alone with a suspicion she couldn't confirm. And my father rewrote her silence into guilt. That realization didn't make me cry. It made me calm. And calm is dangerous. Over the next few months, I didn't mention the letter to anyone else. Not Ray. Not Tyler. Not the cousins who'd started reaching out. I went to work. Paid my bills. Did my shifts at St. Francis Community Hospital. Smiled at worried parents. Held scared children. And every night before bed, I opened my nightstand drawer. Looked at the 2 envelopes. The DNA results. Nana's notarized confession. I wasn't reliving pain. I was rehearsing clarity. If you've ever prepared for a moment that you know will change everything, you know what that feels like. You don't rush it. You shape it. Then came the announcement. Gary's 60th birthday. Venue booked. Catered dinner. Open bar. 80 guests. Tyler posted about it online. Celebrating Dad's legacy. Legacy. That word almost made me laugh. But here's what sealed it for me. Tyler mentioned there would be speeches. Dad has something special planned. Something special. I knew exactly what that meant. Gary loved an audience. He loved controlling a room. He loved telling stories where he was the victim or the hero. And I knew, without being there yet, he would mention loyalty. He would mention betrayal. He would mention how hard it is to raise a child who isn't yours. He would frame himself as noble. And the room would nod. That's when I decided I would attend. Uninvited. But not alone. Now here's the twist you've been waiting for. 3 months before the party, I received another call. Unknown number again. I almost ignored it. Hello? Is this Dakota Ashford? Yes. This is Karen. Silence. My grip tightened on the phone. Karen. The woman from the truck. The woman behind the VFW hall. The woman whose perfume Nana described. I don't expect you to want to speak to me, she said quickly. But I need to tell you something. My heart was steady. I'm listening. I ran into your cousin at the grocery store. She mentioned your grandmother passed. She said things are tense in the family. I don't know what Gary has told you. I let her talk. Because this was information. And information is power. I ended things with Gary before you were born, she said. When I found out your mom was pregnant, I told him to fix his life. Did he ever tell you he thought I wasn't his? A long pause. He said that once. Years later. I thought he was just rewriting things to make himself feel better. Rewriting. That word again. I'm not proud of my part in this, she continued. But I never wanted your mother blamed. There it was. Confirmation layered on confirmation. And then she said something I didn't expect. If you ever need me to tell the truth publicly, I will. I didn't answer right away. Because this is where strategy matters. Public exposure only works when it's undeniable. And suddenly, I had something stronger than paper. I had a witness. Would you be willing to attend his birthday party? I asked. Silence on the line. Then a slow inhale. Yes. That was the moment the plan solidified. Now let's talk psychology for a second. Gary's power came from controlling the narrative. He told the story first. He told it often. He told it loudly. He counted on my silence. He counted on my mother's absence. He counted on Nana's guilt. He counted on the fact that no one likes uncomfortable truths at family events. So I decided to weaponize the one thing he couldn't control. Timing. I didn't warn Tyler. I didn't tell Ray. I didn't give anyone a chance to intervene. The only person who knew was Karen. And she understood what this meant. Not drama. Truth. The night of the party arrived. I didn't dress for revenge. I dressed for calm. Simple navy dress. Hair pulled back. Minimal makeup. No anger on my face. Just composure. Because if you walk into a room angry, they dismiss you. If you walk in calm, they listen. Karen met me in the parking lot. She looked older, of course. Grayer hair. Quieter posture. But her eyes held the kind of guilt that ages people faster than time. You ready? She asked. I nodded. The music was already playing inside. Laughter. Glasses clinking. Voices rising. We stood outside those doors for maybe 5 seconds. But it felt longer. Because once those doors opened, there was no going back. And here's where I need you to stay with me. Because what happened next wasn't chaotic. It was surgical. We walked in. 80 people. Round tables. Gold decorations. A banner with his name stretched across the back wall. Gary stood near the front. Holding a microphone. Mid-speech. Family is everything, he was saying. Of course he was. Tyler stood beside him. Smiling. Guests nodding. And then someone near the entrance turned. Whispered. Heads began to shift. Like dominoes. Gary noticed the movement. Looked toward the door. And saw me. First confusion. Then irritation. Then calculation. And then he saw who was standing behind me. Karen. I have never seen color drain from someone's face that fast. The microphone lowered slowly. The room quieted. 80 pairs of eyes. And for the first time in his life, Gary Ashford didn't control the narrative. I didn't rush forward. I didn't shout. I simply walked toward him. One step at a time. Envelope in my hand. And when I reached the front of the room, he whispered something I'll never forget. "What are you doing?" And that is where we're stopping this session. Because what I said next didn't just end his speech. It ended the story he'd been telling for 30 years. You ever notice how the truth doesn't knock? It doesn't announce itself. It just walks in. And when it does, everything changes. The room was quiet. Not the peaceful kind. The suffocating kind. My mother sat rigid in the hospital chair, her fingers clenched so tight around her purse that her knuckles had turned white. My father stared at the floor like it held answers he wasn't ready to face. And my sister? She wouldn't look at me. 5 years. 5 years of silence. 5 years of birthdays missed. Holidays ignored. Milestones erased. 5 years because of one lie. And now? She needed me. Life has a strange sense of symmetry, doesn't it? If you're still watching, you already know, this wasn't revenge. This was something heavier. The nurse stepped out first. She's stable. Relief exhaled from the room like a storm finally breaking. My mother looked at me. Not as a doctor. As her son. And for the first time in 5 years, there was no anger in her eyes. Just fear. And guilt. We stood outside the recovery room. My father cleared his throat. He's never been a man of long speeches. But what he said next, it took more strength than anything he'd ever taught me. We were wrong. 4 words. That's all. But sometimes 4 words can carry 5 years. You ever wait for an apology so long that when it comes, you don't know what to do with it? I did. Because part of me wanted to say, it's too late. Part of me wanted them to feel the weight I carried alone. But here's the thing nobody tells you. Holding pain doesn't make you stronger. It just makes you tired. And I was tired. My mother's voice trembled. She told us you quit. She said you were ashamed. She said you didn't want us there. Every sentence landed like shattered glass. Not because it hurt. But because it explained everything. The graduation they missed. The wedding they skipped. The silence. It wasn't indifference. It was manipulation. And suddenly, the villain in my story wasn't my parents. It was the lie. And lies? They rot from the inside. When we finally walked into her hospital room, she looked smaller. Not physically. Emotionally. Vulnerable. She knew. She knew I knew. And that kind of truth? It strips away pride fast. She started crying before she spoke. I didn't think it would go that far. That's what people say when consequences arrive. I was scared. Scared of what? Of being compared. Of being second. Of being in my shadow. But here's what she didn't understand. There was never a competition. Not for me. I just wanted my family. Now pause with me for a second. Because this part matters. If you've ever been betrayed by someone close, you know the hardest decision isn't revenge. It's whether to forgive. And forgiveness? It doesn't mean pretending nothing happened. It means deciding the future matters more than the past. I looked at her. 5 years of anger. 5 years of isolation. 5 years of proving myself alone. And in that moment, I realized something powerful. I didn't lose 5 years. They did. They missed my growth. They missed my struggle. They missed the man I became. And that was their loss. I forgive you. The words surprised even me. Not because she deserved them, but because I deserved peace. And peace is expensive. It costs pride. My parents cried. She cried. I didn't. Not because I wasn't emotional, but because something inside me had already healed long ago. I just didn't know it. The months that followed weren't perfect. Trust doesn't rebuild overnight. Family dinners were awkward. Conversations were careful. But they were happening. And that's the difference. You want to know the real twist? The real poetic justice? My sister asked me to mentor her. Career advice. Guidance. Support. The same support she once sabotaged. And I said yes. Not to prove superiority, but to break the cycle. Because someone has to be mature enough to end the war. And here's what I've learned. Success is loud. But character? Character is quiet. It shows up when you could destroy someone. And choose not to. If this story hit you, if you've ever been misunderstood, betrayed, cut off, doubted, remember this. Your silence doesn't erase your worth. Your absence doesn't cancel your value. And sometimes, the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's becoming undeniable. 5 years ago, they closed a door. Last month, they opened it. But this time, I walked through as someone who didn't need permission. And if you're still here, drop a comment. Would you have forgiven her? Or would you have walked away? Because real strength isn't about who was right. It's about who chose growth. This wasn't just a hospital reunion. It was a reset. And sometimes, life doesn't give you justice. It gives you perspective. And that's even more powerful.